Good morning, everyone. My name is Nick Purdy, and I am the 2023 Vice Chair of YPN, and we're going to take a quick look at the May Green Sheet. So for our new listings, we're at 1,067, which is down year to date 22.1%. Our closed sales are at 812, which is also down 25.5% year to date. Our median sales price is at $351,000, which is actually up 3.7%. And the inventory of homes for sale is at 999 homes. That is up 5% from last year to date. All right, take it away, Jen, Jesus, and Eunice Duran with MFA.
There. I know I met you during a class at Fidelity, the Hablo Bienes Raíces class, and you were like, I thought you were going to do it all in Spanish, and I think you got a little shy. But you had a lot of good info, and I know that you were super open about, coming to our brokerages and talking to everybody because there's a lot of good stuff at MFA. We actually bought a house in 2021 at the height of all this nonsense in the 200, like the low 200 price point, and we used MFA. So it was really cool to be able to, one, buy a house, and it was for 207, if you could believe that, and we had, the down payment assistance, which was really awesome. So I can personally talk to the program, it works, it helps, it's really cool. So I thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, and just to add to that, when we did have that class at Fidelity, you captivated the entire audience. That included seasoned professionals that are super busy in the business, and they had a lot of good questions for you as well. It's like not all of us know 100% about what MFA is, so it's very helpful that you can break it down for us.
Right, exactly. So that's what I'm going to do today. And you're right. There are, I think, a lot of people out there, if they don't know a lender or if they don't know a realtor, a lot of New Mexicans don't even know that MFA is available to help them with down payment assistance, right? So I'm hoping today I'll be able to educate a little bit for people that maybe don't know a whole lot of MFA. And of course, I'm not going to go in real detail, but at least just give some points on, what programs we have available, who can qualify for them. And for those of you that don't know, as far as if somebody is wanting to get down payment assistance, they're actually not going to be going directly to MFA. So they're not going to take an application. The way our program works is we have about 40 lenders around the state, and that is over 330 loan originators that specialize in our program. So what they would do is they would actually go to one of our preferred lenders, take the application, and then that's where the lender would then figure out, do they qualify for down payment assistance, right? And so there are different rules that we have that the customer definitely has to fall within. But I think a lot of people don't realize that it is easier than they think to be able to tap into down payment and to buy a house. Where I don't think that they believe that maybe they can't ever buy a house, right? Yeah. So hopefully today with these guidelines that I'm going to go over, I think it'll hopefully be an eye opener and say, oh wow, well, maybe it is possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've had this discussion at the closing table where the borrowers were like, we didn't ever think that we were going to get here. And it's thanks to programs like this that they're able to achieve home ownership, especially since it's home ownership month.
That's right. Yeah, and it's one of the biggest objections you hear too, I'd love to, but one of them is my credit isn't so good, and then the other one is I don't have any money for down payment, or I don't have enough money, or I only have this much money,
Yeah.
So stuff like this it's beautiful, and it's not just about down payment assistance, which is awesome.
Right, exactly. Right. And so I can probably start with our first-time home buyer program, right? So I mentioned earlier we have two programs that we have available right now. And so our core program is called our First Home, First Down. And so for the first home, it is exclusively for first-time home buyers. And so the first home is a 30-year fixed term loan program, and it comes with an optional down payment of a second mortgage. And to qualify for our first home program, they do have to be exclusively a first-time home buyer. Now, what's a first-time home buyer in MFA's eyes? Right. So number one, somebody that's purchasing a home for the first time. So, that's obvious. But our other rule is we have a 3-year rule. So if somebody hasn't ever owned if somebody has owned and occupied a property in the last 3 years, then at that point, then we could consider them a first-time home buyer. So even though they've owned before, right, as long as it's been 3 years that have passed, or longer, then maybe they could qualify for it. But again, the key is own and occupy, right? So it couldn't have been so somebody could have owned a home 3 years ago, had to sell it for some reason. They've been either renting an apartment, a house, or living with family for the last 3 years. Well, they could possibly be able to qualify for first home.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
The other thing that we have as far as qualifying is for definitions of first-time home buyer. If somebody is a veteran, then we do have a special waiver for that veteran. But of course, they do have to have, certain proof. There is a document that they have to sign and then, provide to us. But even with that, if they're a veteran, they don't have to wait the 3 years to be able to qualify for first home.
Really?
Oh, that's pretty cool. So like if they've been deployed or something, that can...
So they have to be a veteran. So they have
Oh,
to
that's
have
sorry.
to be,
Yes.
Yeah. So they have to be discharged. So someone that's maybe in like the National Guard currently wouldn't be able to qualify.
Okay.
But yeah, if they're a veteran that's been discharged, then we do have a waiver. And of course, there's certain documents and that they need to provide to us, but they'd still be able to benefit from first home, first down, and not have to wait the 3 years.
I do have a question there. I'm a veteran, actually.
Mhm.
I'm an Army veteran, and I'm not in the National Guard, so I would qualify for this. Like, let's say I sold my house, and I would be able to qualify the next month or two?
Yes, for first home.
Wow.
Yes.
See, that's something I bet a lot of veterans have no idea about.
Right, exactly.
Matter of fact, I didn't know, and I'm
Yes.
entitled.
So that's why I'm bringing that up, because a lot of people don't realize, right?
Awesome.
And of course, they still have to qualify, with our other criteria that we have. But as far as our definition of a first-time home buyer, it's vast. And, there's a lot more that I could probably go over, but for the sake of time, I'll just kind of go over like the major ones today.
Okay.
And like Jen said, I'm always open to do in-person trainings for your brokerages, your companies, where I could go in more detail of all of the things that are okay with MFA or what our definitions are. But I think those are probably the three core. And that's why I bring up the veteran, because a lot of people, again, don't realize that is something that they could qualify for down payment assistance.
Huge.
Yes.
Huge.
And the other thing I do want to mention, you don't have to have a VA loan either, right?
Oh, really?
Right. So like if you wanted to do a FHA loan, for example, it's just the waiver for that 3-year rule for us to consider you a first-time home buyer. That's
amazing.
What that's for. Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool.
That is really cool.
I like it. So let's see. That was the first home, first down.
Mm-hmm. And so it's a first, so that's our definition of a first-time home buyer. So we do have some other qualifications, of course, for them to qualify. So as far as types of properties, I know this is one that people might have some questions on. So it does have to be a single-family residence. So it could be a detached single-family residence. It can be a condo or a townhouse. Now, if it is a condo, your lender would have to verify that it's HUD, Fannie Mae approved, of course, right? So they have to go through, all those qualifications as well. And another one that people don't realize is, because we do understand that sometimes homes aren't that affordable, right? But we have opened up our program where we're fine with doing or financing manufactured homes.
Ooh.
So it can be either a single wide or a double wide. But of course, if somebody wants to buy a manufactured home, there are certain qualifications that need to be followed, right? So as you know, with FHA, it can't be over a certain age. It can't be moved more than once. So there are qualifications like that that need to be followed. It does have to be set on permanent foundation, assessed as real property already. But that's, for the affordability, it's wonderful for somebody to be able to buy a manufactured home. The other really great benefit is that we are going to offer that home buyer the same rate that we have for, like say, a traditional site-built home. So we don't charge a higher rate if they're wanting to buy a manufactured home. It's, exactly whatever our rate is on that day, they're going to receive that interest rate as well.
Do you see a lot of people taking advantage of that?
I am, yes. Especially now because, you guys are aware the affordability of homes has...
It's skyrocketed.
Yeah, skyrocketed. So now... we're seeing a lot more people being able to, or going into the manufactured home options. The one thing though I do want to disclose is not every lender, not all of our lender partners will offer our program with the manufactured home. So on our website, and I'll give the website in a little bit at the end, but we do have a filtering system of our participating lenders there. And if you filter by manufactured home, all of our manufactured home lenders will be listed there.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's
because
pretty
again, not every lender offers all the programs that we have available. So,
that's good to know.
mhm.
Kind
I'm
of
writing that down.
narrows down the search.
Yep. The one I could say that we don't allow, which we get a lot of questions on, so I want to bring this up, is 2 to 4 units. So if somebody wanted to buy a duplex, live in one, rent the other, unfortunately, that is something that MFA does not allow. And again, it's because we're looking at properties that are single family
Mhm.
and non-income producing, right? So if it's a duplex, they want to live in one, rent the other,
Yeah.
and that is something
It's
that's
technically like an investment property.
exactly. So we won't allow that, even though maybe FHA does, right? But for us, we don't allow that type of property.
Understandable.
Mhm.
Are there any requirements that you need in order to get the down payment assistance? I mean, there's got to be like, credit score and all that good stuff, but sometimes people have to do classes.
Yes.
Okay.
So as far as credit score, to answer that, as far as MFA is concerned, the borrower does have to have at least a 620 credit score if they have credit. Now, there are certain circumstances where maybe somebody's never established credit before. They don't have credit scores, right? So what we also allow is called alternative credit. So the lender partner can actually build credit for the home buyer. Right? So they can use rental verification, they can use utility bills, cell phone bills, car insurance. So if they have, and they have to obviously have at least, a 12-month history on that. And with that 12 months, they have to obviously show that they're making their payments on time for the last 12 months. But that's something else that a lot of people don't realize, right? They feel like, well, I don't have credit, so I will never be able to buy a house. But in fact, that's not true, right? Obviously, they do have to have the information that the lender requires. But as far as if them being able to qualify or not, why not try? Right?
Yeah,
They
and
have
that's
that
what I tell
information.
people, because I'm like, you'd be surprised. A lot of people say like, oh, I got to work on my credit. It's so bad. And then they
Yes.
take a look and it's like,
Mhm.
it's not so bad, or like, wait a minute, like you can qualify and they don't
Right.
know this stuff. So
Exactly.
obviously that goes to the experts in the field, that's
Mhm.
out to the lenders. Do you know if all the lenders have that credit building ability, or is it like select partners?
Again, it does depend. I would say most of our lender partners do offer that option.
Yeah.
And then also too, if somebody is maybe they are very close to that 620 credit score, maybe they have a 615. Well, our lender partners are willing to help them get that credit score up, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it'll take 6 months, to get that score high enough for them to qualify. But at least, our partners are strong relationships that they're like, well, we'll just work with you those 6 months, get you ready. Maybe you're not ready today,
Yeah.
but in 6 months, let's get, your credit good enough to be able to qualify.
Yeah.
And again, with that alternative credit, with that no scores building, that is per lender as well. So
Yeah.
I do encourage, if you have that situation, talk to your lender and find out if they're willing to do that alternative credit.
Yeah, those are good questions to
Mhm.
ask, just because that's another one of the big ones, like I don't have any credit or my credit isn't good enough. And I like to tell people like, I can have you talk to a lender. They can just take a look and see what your situation looks like. And if you're not ready to buy now, in a couple of months, like you can get ready for that. It doesn't have to be now.
Right.
The perfect time to buy is when you're ready, right? So
Exactly.
just knowing when you're ready, how to get ready, that goes a long way. So, building the relationship with the partners, the lender partners, knowing if they do have that available, like that just opens so many doors for, potential homeowners.
Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah. And to answer your next question, as far as a homebuyer education. So for our program, we do require pre-purchase homebuyer education course. And we have a couple classes that are online, or we also have nonprofit organizations that do offer classroom in-person type training as well. And it is obviously, like an 8-hour class, either way you look at it, if it's online or if it's with one of our nonprofits. But with that education, it goes in depth, the whole process of the home buyer experience. So it's really valuable. And the other nice thing about our home buyer education is, like that scenario I just told you, maybe they don't have the credit yet, right? So our lender partner is going to be working with them, but the lender partner will get them into that course, because you don't have to have a loan in our system or ready to go, right? So you can get them prepared, have them take that class, and then they're educated about the whole process of, buying a house. And then the certificate, once it's completed, is good for an entire year. So as long as the loan closes within a year, so it gives them that leeway to be able to, say, hey, well, now I know what I'm getting myself into. I feel comfortable, and it talks, kind of about like the process of title, the realtor, the lender. So then that way they don't feel intimidated by the whole process, because it can be intimidating.
Absolutely,
right?
especially walking into the unknown.
Right. So many things that the poor home buyer has to go through, and just different people they have to talk to. So this is great education. So we definitely, require that, because we want to make sure that our home buyers know what they're, getting into when they're buying a home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you think that you would have a course in high school or in college where
Yes.
you could be educated on home ownership, but unfortunately,
You have TikTok.
I never received a class yet. I watch YouTube videos.
How to buy a home.
Yes. No, so this is huge, a home ownership class. It educates our public, gets them in. When they show up to the closing table, they're not just deer in the headlights. They actually know what to expect. They've been educated prior to, so hey, I'm just here to sign. Just tell me what I'm signing.
It looked like they've done it a million times.
Right, exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
Something else that, in order for our home buyer to be able to qualify for our program, and I think I skipped this, but I keep talking about like FHA, VA. So with our programs, the lender, when they take the application from the home buyer, they're going to determine what best fits their needs, right? So with our program, it can be used with either FHA, VA, USDA, or Fannie Mae conventional. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, because I talked about VA earlier. So really, what's the picture of the home buyer? What's going to be best suited for them and what they can afford. So that is something that when the lender takes the application from the home buyer, that's the first thing that they're going to determine, right? Do they qualify for a traditional loan? And once they determine that, then that's where, and they need down payment assistance, that's where the lender says, okay, can they qualify for down payment assistance through MFA? And that's kind of what the guidelines we were talking about. And earlier I mentioned with our program, and the reason why we were created is to help low and moderate income households, right? So with that first home, first down program, we do have income and sales price requirements, right? So they can't go over a certain income or a purchase price. And it does vary by county. But just to give you an example, and I think I have it, let me see, I have it here. For Albuquerque, for a 1 to 2 person household, the maximum income is $79,750. For a household of 3 or more, it's $91,713. And then as far as the purchase price, and again, this is for Bernalillo County, Albuquerque MSA, it is $349,526. So when we're looking at that, and again, we look at household income and then purchase price. So that's something else too, that when someone's looking for a home and the lender qualifies them, they have to make sure that they are below that income requirement and also purchasing a home below that amount. Now, I do want to say that every year, HUD does a study and they determine the current income and purchase price limits. And I'm going to say probably in the next couple of weeks, we will be getting the report back from HUD. So hopefully it's, fingers crossed that these numbers will be able to benefit more people. So I'm hoping that the income and purchase price limits will go up. The one thing about that though is, again, because it varies by county, some counties may go up or maybe some may go down, right? It just kind of depends on the calculation of how HUD figures all that out and their calculations. So it's going to depend, but I would say we're probably going to be getting those numbers in the next few weeks. And then once we tabulate, we look at everything, then we would send out a lender memo with if and when there are any changes. So hopefully those will go up, because we do realize that houses, the purchase prices of these houses around the state are going up, right? So if we can help more people by increasing these purchase and income limits, then we definitely will try.
Well, that's nice that it's reevaluated annually, because just like our taxes are reevaluated annually, and boy, did our taxes go up last year.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, the purchase price, if it could go up a little bit, that'd be good, because obviously $349 is about your average home price
right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's where it causes, I think some stress for our home buyers. So hopefully we can get those up. Now, we were talking about down payment assistance, right? So if the lender does figure that the home buyer does fit within these requirements, then what can they get as far as down payment? So if they do qualify with our requirements, then for the first home, it comes with that optional second mortgage. And what they can get is they can get up to 4% of the sales price of the home to help them with down payment and closing cost assistance.
Is there a maximum, or is it like 4%, or is it like?
So it's 4% of whatever the sales price is.
Yeah.
So, again, if it's that $349,526, then it's going to be, and it, they buy that purchase price, that's the home, they're going to get a little bit shy of $14,000 to help them with down payment.
That is a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's a major hurdle that people think, I don't have $14,000 in the bank. How am I going to come up with a down payment?
Mm-hmm.
That's where my face steps in.
Yep, that's where we come in. And
That's
help
beautiful.
them.
And for a little while, from what I know, it doesn't have any more funds, but for a little while there was that $25,000 grant
Uh-huh.
that went out. Do they reevaluate that? Are we going to get that anytime soon?
Okay, so for those of you that don't know what Jen's talking about, we had been granted some funding from the state. And so we had set aside $8 million, and we created a program that was called Down Payment Advantage. And what this one was, it was a $25,000 grant program. So it was awesome, right? And this program was designed for home buyers that were below 80% area median income. So they did have to have a lower income, as well as the purchase price had to be obviously lower because the incomes were lower. And the benefit of that is it was a grant. So this $25,000 could be used for down payment, closing costs, and anything left over was going to principal reduction of that first mortgage. So essentially it was lowering the loan amount on the first. And, a lot of people were able to benefit. So we released it in December, and by the end of April, the funds unfortunately have been depleted because we only had that $8 million, but we were able to help 320 families throughout New Mexico with this program.
That's so good.
Yeah, and so it's amazing what that can do and help people qualify, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people really benefit from it, and I know you had
I wanted to talk about that. Yeah, because it was really cool. Like, it's tough out there. I'm looking at that maximum purchase price and $349. Like, it's not bad. When we bought, 207, like getting a house for 207, that was like unheard of, right? And it appraised, like it was crazy. Like, there's no way. We didn't have to fight anybody for it. I mean, it was its own little like unicorn.
Right.
But like this one was so I don't know, like I'm so like cheesy with some of this stuff. But so I had been working with a seller. We were, I was going to do like 50-50 of the work. I was going to be a co-broker, and then the other broker had to refer that out to me. So I was working with him. I was trying to, get him ready to sell. And like one thing came up after another. And he was trying to sell, I think since maybe he started thinking about it maybe March 2022. So he started like early on in the year, and it pushed him out. And then around like Christmas time in December, he was like, Jen, I think I'm ready. Like, I'm just doing the final things. I need to do some traveling. And, can you come and take a look at the house and let me know what you think? Like, what do we need done? And then I was like, yeah, yes, let's get it on the market. So, I was running my numbers again, and I'm looking at it, and I was like, like at the tippy top, like maybe 225. And, maybe a little more around 215, but we could push for 225. And I told him, I was like, you got to touch this up. You got to do that, and it'll be like, we can push it to the top of the, where the CMAs are. So it went on the market for 225, and I told him, I was like, hey, it might sit for a little while. And now just a little backstory. So this is the first year that I do real estate full time. I've had my license for almost 3 years, but this is the first year that I actually it was jumping into real estate full time. So it was cool because this was going to be my very first transaction as a full time real estate broker. So I just prepared them a little bit. I was like, look, we're pushing it to the tippy top of the CMA, we might sit for a little while, like don't be surprised, right? And then I got on the train to go to Santa Fe because the Women's Council of Realtors was having a speaker. Yeah. And like I'm on the train not even 10 minutes that morning, and I get a text message, hey Jen, it's Bonita Olivari. I sent over an offer for Rayo del Sol. It should be in your inbox. It might be in spam, you know, sometimes it happens. And I was like, oh my, like it just, what? Like it just went live. What is happening right now? You know, and then a little bit later I got ding, ding, ding. And it was like showing notifications. And I was like, what is happening? And then, you know, I'm doing some research and I'm like, oh my God, it's the 225 price point. It's the $25,000 grant price point. It can qualify for it. So, you know, I think this like realization came when I was typing up the property description, because I was like, it may qualify for the $25,000 grant. Reach out to your favorite lender. Yep. You know, so what was really cool is over the course of the next, I don't know, 12 hours or so, we got 8 offers in. And at that point, my sellers were like, what happened? And I was like, so there is a $25,000 grant. And I've been so out of like, you know, production and real estate that I wasn't aware that this was out there until this very morning. Yes. So I was explaining to them, I was like, the really cool thing about this, and they were surprised, right? Like $25,000. Like when we first bought, we got, I forgot how much he said, it maybe like 6,000 or 5,000. And I was like, well, the nice thing is like, they can use this not just towards the down payment, but they can use it towards closing costs. They can use it towards, you know, like all kinds of things. Like they can make a really aggressive offers. And each offer that came in was written so aggressively in its own way. And I want to say 6 of the 8 offers that came in were recipients of that $25,000 grant. So it was really cool. And it was hard to make the calls the next, you know, when they finally decided on one. Like it was so tough to make the phone calls and say, hey, thank you so much for taking the time to write up that offer. Like it was amazing. Like, you know, you did this, you did this. And they decided to go with another offer. And at that point, my sellers had given me like the okay to share what it was. And I mean, Bonita, the first one that was in there to send in the offer, she's the one that beat everybody out. She came in clean. She came in early. She came in aggressive, and she wasn't compromising anything for her buyer. Like she didn't waive inspections. She didn't do anything of that. And we had a couple of people that did, and we had a couple of people that actually, the 2 other offers, they didn't have the grant and they came in over asking, but then they were like, well, help us with this. And I was like, I am so sorry, dude. Like these guys are, you know, like they're working with what they got and they're not asking for anything, you know? So it was really nice to see that my sellers went with a first-time home buyer's offer, you know, and there's only so much that I can't tell them which offer to take, you know, but it's like, hey, let me explain to you what they're offering and why they're offering it this way, you know, so even though nobody's going above the purchase price, your net out is still coming out to more because of how generous they're being with what they can do with the 25. They're not just using it for themselves, but they're trying to say, hey, I can't give you more, but I can take care of this. I can take care of that, you know? So what ended up being super cool is Jesus was the title officer on that one. And that was our first closing together. And he's mine forever because he was amazing. My sellers were bilingual. So they, you know, they speak Spanish. And Jesus is bilingual. And he even did real estate in Mexico, which is like super, super cool. Yep. We'll have to like hear about that another time.
Yeah, that was a heck of an experience.
We got it. That's a whole nother episode. I'm gonna write it down.
Buying real estate in Mexico. Let's do it.
But he went above and beyond, and I didn't even know if this was allowed. I was like, "Are you sure? Can I tell people that this is happening?" But my seller had a crazy work schedule, and he would go out of state, and it was kind of like he would be given maybe 12 hours notice about what state he was going to go and like work out of. So I was like, oh my gosh, you know, this is what happens. This is, you know, this is how like his work schedule. And he's like that from Monday through Friday. And what do you think? And he's like, let's do it on Saturday. And I'm like, is that allowed? like, are you sure? Like, like, what do you mean? You know, like, I've never had anybody do that. So it was really cool, like just making that work for them.
Yeah.
You know, for the buyer too. I know you went above and beyond for them. Bonita Olivari was wonderful to work with. And what's really cool, and then John Gabaldon from Waterstone, he was the lender on the thing. And what was super, super cool is that that class that you taught at Fidelity, the Hablo Bienes Raíces, we were all there. Yeah, and we were talking about this one transaction that was this, you know, and they had the $25,000 grant and the, you know, and they were bilingual. So we had Jesus as our title officer. And then John was like, yeah, I was a lender on that one. And then we found out that it was also in what's it called? The targeted area. Yeah. So on the census tract. So that buyer got to have the, it's like the lowest interest rate in the past 12 months.
Yes.
That's what he got, like at the end of it. Like, it was just an amazing transaction, and it went so smoothly, and the communication was amazing. Everybody like was just on top of it.
It was almost surreal.
Yeah.
And from my point of view, I got the figures before closing, and I'm working them up, and I'm like, this can't be right. Like, I'm like double checking everything, and I was like, wow, what? And I believe they even got money at the closing table. Am I thinking of the right one? Did they end up getting money back?
Oh, I don't know. I had the sellers. Right, the sellers were like,
I almost want
they
to
were
say
happy.
that they got money back at the closing. Is that allowed that they get money back?
So it would have to be a principal reduction. So maybe if they did, yeah.
Okay, I must be thinking of a different one. But still, by the time I showed up to the closing table, Bonita was there with her buyers, and it was just smiles all around the table. It was just like, oh my gosh, this happened, and this happened, and this happened. It was just like the best case scenario for everything, for the financing, for the location, for the buyers themselves. The buyers were a sweet couple. So it was just, for me, like Jen said earlier, it was a unicorn. Like, it's something
a golden unicorn, I think is what we call it. Yeah, the
Yes.
golden unicorn.
Yeah, it's not just a unicorn, it's a golden unicorn.
Right,
It was
right.
unbelievable. It was just probably one of the coolest transactions I've ever had in my entire life, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And it just so happened to be with some great people too.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
Yeah, it's good. And it's nice to, you know, like I said, seeing that sales price, like, it's good because right now our bidding wars are around the 250 to 280 price point, you know. So if they qualify for this, and if they can go up that high, that takes them out of that super competitive price point. I mean, it's still pretty tricky here, but like, there is hope, you know. If at 225 it could happen, if at 207 it could happen, like, they can make it happen, you know. And working with the right people that have the right information, that know how to use the programs, how you know, how to take advantage of everything that's available, knowing that everything that is available, like, that's so key to getting people into a home. And, you know, like I said, the right time is when you're ready, but having the people that can guide you and get you ready like that makes a huge difference.
Huge.
Oh yeah,
Huge.
well said, Jen.
This is awesome.
Yeah, and thank you. And that was such a great story. We love to hear, you know, success stories like that, because, you know, we don't know a lot of times who we help, and, you know, so I'm glad that we were able to help this family. And again, like you're talking about with that targeted areas, I think a lot of people don't even know that targeted areas exist. And so what targeted areas are is the Census Bureau, they identify these areas where 70% of the families that are within those targeted tracts make less than 80% of the area median income. And in New Mexico, we have 11 areas that fall within that targeted area census. Here in Albuquerque, there's 6 areas here that could qualify. Now, what the benefits are to be able to qualify for targeted area is if they're purchasing a home like your client within this certain census tract that it's identified, and it's on our website. So if they are going to buy on here, there's certain benefits, right? So the first one is we waive that first-time homebuyer requirement, so they don't have to be a first-time homebuyer. Their higher income and purchase price limits. And then also, like you mentioned, we're going to go back 12 months and we're going to see what the lowest rate was that we had in the last previous 12 months. And we're going to give the borrower that lowest rate that we've had. So it's all
amazing.
plus, right? But again, it is certain areas, so you could look at our website. But even that, a lot of people don't realize that it's available. Now, with your client, though, since they were benefiting from that $25,000 grant, they couldn't use the higher income and purchase price limits because the grant had its own specific, right? But if now that we don't have funding for that grant, somebody can still purchase a home in that targeted area and still get those those benefits,
The lower
right?
interest rate.
Lower interest rate, the higher income, the higher purchase price. They don't have to be a first-time home buyer if they're buying in those areas.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, so it's still really beneficial for them. And then what will happen is it's not a separate program, but if they are buying in a targeted area, they're still going to get that first home, first down program, right? So they'll still be able to get that up to that 4% of the purchase price for down payment assistance. And yeah, so it's nothing but good things, I think, right? But it is limited to those specific areas.
Yeah.
But,
Which is, if go door knocking and
Yes.
find the homes, like if you want to get them in that area. So you
Mhm.
mentioned you don't have to be a first time home buyer. Someone have to jump in here and ask
yes,
about
for a
Home
new
Forward.
program.
Yep.
Okay. We did launch a new program and it's called Home Forward. And so this Home Forward program is for someone that is not a first-time home buyer, right? So we launched it a couple months ago. And so what the benefit is, of course, number one, why would they use Home Forward, right? So number one is if maybe they don't qualify for first home, right? So they don't fit our first-time home buyer definition for some reason, or maybe their income happens to be higher when we calculate it, and so it's going to be over income for that first home. And so now the lender's like, okay, well, can we fit them into Home Forward and still give them the ability to get down payment assistance? So with Home Forward, this is another great option. So we do say that it's a non-first time home buyer program, but it could be somebody that is a first time home buyer as well, right? And maybe their income is higher than our other program allows. So then the lender's going to just, put them in that Home Forward. And with Home Forward, it's going to be the same type of criteria. They'd still have to have a minimum 620 credit score. As far as property types, that's all going to be the same of what we allow. So it's all similar as far as our other requirements, but we do have slightly different income and purchase price limits. Now with the Home Forward, that is going to vary county by county. So each county is going to have its own income and purchase price limit. So as far as the purchase price limit right now for Home Forward, the maximum purchase price is $320 for Albuquerque, and then the income limit, it's a little over $115,000 to qualify. So it is much more beneficial if they have a little bit of a higher income.
Mm-hmm.
But what that gives them is, if somebody can't qualify for our first home, first down, well, now here's the other option, right? Maybe they did a lot of overtime and they're going to be over income based on our first home. So now the lender has this option and says, okay, well, you can still get down payment assistance, but it's going to be through Home Forward. And so the Home Forward, it is a first mortgage as well, 30-year fixed mortgage, first lien. And what it comes with an optional second lien mortgage, and we will offer up to 3%. Now with this one, it's a little more restrictive. That 3%, if they're doing an FHA or a Fannie Mae conventional loan, it can only go towards down payment. So the home buyer would have to come in with their own closing costs.
Okay.
The exception is if somebody's doing a VA or a USDA loan, because of course those don't require down payment.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, then that 3% can go towards closing costs, but that would be the only exception for VA and USDA.
For the ones that don't have a down payment.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. And I've been looking at those USDA ones because that's pretty, we have a listing out in Socorro and the map shows it's in one of those areas, so I'm I need to know more about that, but that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, question on that second, the optional second, would the interest rate be a little bit higher on that second?
So with our program, we look at our rates on a daily basis, right? So our rates can change. So that's why I'm not going to talk about rates today, but they are published on our website. But we do evaluate them. And yes, so there's going to be the first mortgage, and then for both of our DPA second options, they will be slightly higher for those second mortgages.
And is it a shorter term?
So for our first home, first down program, the home buyer does have an option for that, the DPA, the down payment assistance. So they can choose between a 10, a 15, or a 30-year amortization.
Nice.
So they can choose, and whatever term they choose, then the rate will be slightly different. Now with our Home Forward, we don't have the 30-year amortization available, so they have an option of paying it off either 10 or a 15. And the great thing about a home buyer using MFA is we don't have prepayment penalties on our programs. So if somebody did come into some money and they wanted to pay that second mortgage off before the term,
no penalty.
they can pay it off, no penalty.
Nice.
Right? Mm-hmm. so they can make double payments if they wanted to, if they were comfortable with it. So yeah, it's so we're real flexible about that.
That's really cool.
I want to say you mentioned something about people who maybe don't necessarily need the down payment or don't want the down payment assistance, but your rates are like spectacular. So, like sometimes you're really, really good.
Yes.
But you said, I remember you saying something about like people still being able to take advantage of those rates without having to take out that second mortgage or use if they don't need it.
Yeah. And I can talk a little bit about that. So, so what you're talking about, Jen, is with our program, of course, if there is somebody that wants to utilize our program, right, they still have to qualify, obviously, with our criteria. As far as if they're wanting to do a first home, they still have to be a first-time home buyer, the credit score, they have to be below income and the purchase price limits. But you're right. Our down payment assistance seconds, they are optional on both programs. So if somebody is wanting to utilize our program because, again, our rates are very competitive, right? So sometimes maybe our rate is maybe lower than what the lender can get in the market, and they don't need our down payment. Now, this is a rare scenario because I would say most of our home buyers, they come to MFA because obviously they need down payment, right? They have no other option. But somebody could maybe get a large gift from a family member, from their parents, and they say, well, hey, I don't really need MFA's down payment assistance, but I fit the criteria of their program, so why not, right?
Take advantage of that low interest rate.
Take advantage of that low interest rate on the first mortgage that we have to offer.
That's thousands saved.
Yes,
I'm all in for a lower interest rate.
Yes.
That's awesome. I love it. We talked about that $25,000 grant. I'm trying to think like while we have her here. I'm like, I want to ask all the questions. Do you have any?
Well, I think we covered the ones that we were going to talk about. Unless, did you have any other programs that you were going to mention?
So not at this time.
Okay.
We did have another program called Home. What was it called? Oh my gosh. Why am I blanking?
And I don't have my phone, or else I'd look
sorry.
it up. You're okay.
It sounds like Home Forward, but Home Now. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry. Okay.
Nice.
Okay. Go ahead. You can start over.
Record.
Sorry, I'm nervous. Okay.
No problem.
Yeah. So you can go ahead and say if there's any other programs.
So, are there any other programs you'd like to tell us about?
The only other one that I want to briefly talk about, it's called our Home Now program. And so that one, the funding has been depleted, but hopefully we'll be able to, bring it back if we get awarded more funding for it. And basically what this Home Forward program was, Home Now program it was a flat $7,000. And that one was for people that were below 80% area median income as well, kind of like our down payment assistance or down payment advantage program. But with this one, it was a 10-year forgivable second.
I've closed a few of those.
Yes. And so what would happen is that, for the first 10 years, obviously it showed up as a lien on the property. But the great thing is that it was no payments and no interest, as long as, of course, they didn't do anything, right? So when I say don't do anything, as long as they didn't refi or sell, transfer title, and they had to own or occupy the property for the full 10 years. But if they did comply with that term, then after the 10-year period, then it would just, go away as a lien. But if they did refi or sell, then of course at that time, during the sale or the refi, they would just pay back that $7,000. But that one, what was really extraordinary about that and why we ran out of funds is with that $25,000 down payment advantage program, we allowed the Home Now program to get stacked with it. So they were not only getting a $25,000 grant, they could then also use that $7,000 to help them for even additional down payment.
Do you remember if they had it?
I think they did.
Did they really?
Because they had everything.
Yeah.
That's why it was the golden unicorn.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was like,
Yeah.
I'm
I
almost
remember
certain that they did
covering
have
So
that.
that was giving them $32,000
That is
in
definitely
assistance.
true. That's
Yeah.
exactly
and
what it
so
was.
they were able to
They got
even do
32 grand.
yes, even a larger down payment, or we're going to principal reduction. So and that one, hopefully we'll be able to, get more funding for it and bring it back. But right now, because the down payment advantage and that home now, they were being stacked together. Of course, both of them got depleted, pretty quick. So that is hopefully one that in the future we'll be able to bring back, or a version of it. So we're looking into that. And, again, we're always looking for new programs of what we can do and how we can help more people. And like I mentioned earlier, hopefully with these new calculations from HUD, we'll be able to increase the income purchase price limits, because, the purchase price limits around the state have gone up significantly in a short time. So maybe, that'll open up doors for even more families to be able to benefit from our program.
That would be wonderful. And just speaking firsthand, just watching people's faces across the closing table as they're signing this paperwork, it's just wonderful. Like that's one of the things I love about my job as a closer, that I get to be with these first time home buyers when they're closing, when they're signing their documents, and I'm sitting there with their realtor, and it's such a great feeling. Yes. And when you shake their hand and they're leaving the office and they're just like, thank you. Yeah. And I don't know. That's why I do this. Yes. I just love helping people get into a home. So for you, as MFA, you are literally helping them get into the door. So you are doing God's work for sure.
Oh, thank you. And I absolutely love what I do, right? And I just live for opportunities like this, because like I mentioned earlier, not a lot of people know about our program. Yeah. And so that's my goal, right? So I go out as much as I can and I talk to as many people just to educate them, like Jen said, if it's a newer realtor maybe that's unfamiliar with MFA, get with me and I can educate you, and I can go, because obviously I'm going to go in more detail than I have today just for the sake of time. But there's so many tips and tricks on how to get your home buyer into a house, right? It's not impossible, but if you know what we're looking for and what our requirements are, then it's going to be easy, right? Kind of like how you mentioned with Bonita, like she knows MFA inside and out. Yeah. So, if she has a client, she knows like, okay, you can do this, we can do that program, boom, boom, right? And so that not only, helps the home buyer, but it helps everyone else. And, we're all a team, right? We all work together. And so that's what's really, I think, inspiring. I get up every day and I'm just so grateful that I can do my job and just help as many people and, kind of get the word out. And of course, maybe our program isn't the best for that particular home buyer, but again, there's that other tool in your toolbox, and say, well, hey, maybe we can get you in this program or that to help you buy a house. So so it's really rewarding.
So how can we book you? If I want you to come and talk to my team, if I want you to come to our brokerage, how can we do that?
Okay, yeah. So you can contact me directly. I can give you my cell phone number. So that is area code 505-239-1301. And it is a cell number, so you can call me, text me, leave me a voicemail. And my email address is eduran, so EDURAN @housingnm.org. And as far as our website, if anybody's interested in getting more information about everything that MFA does, because earlier I did mention we're not only down payment, right? We have other programs that we can help New Mexico families. So you can definitely look in our website. But our website is www.housingnm.org. And when you go in there, you're going to hover over programs and partners. And if you look to the right, it's going to be lenders and realtors. So you can go in there for the lenders and realtors that want more information. You can see what our rates are. You can see fact sheets about our programs. So we just have everything on that website. So if you have questions, or I might have said something today and you're like, oh, I'm curious, I want to maybe get a little bit more information about what Eunice said, definitely go in there. But again, I'm always open to do a training at your office. I often do breakfast and learns, lunch and learns, if you're interested in that. And we can, for an hour, kind of go over different strategies, our guidelines, going in depth. If you have certain questions, I'm always happy and, wanting to definitely help and get the word out there. Because there is one thing that I think realtors especially that don't use our program very often, I think there's maybe an intimidation factor when it comes to MFA, or they've heard and say, well, MFA takes longer. right? If I do MFA, it's going to take longer to close and it's just, going to be more complicated. And in reality, it's not. It is true that your lender that you're working with, they do have to send in a file just to do a pre-compliance to make sure that it obviously does fit within our requirements. But the way our program works is when we receive the file, we're not going to underwrite the file, right? So the lender, if they're doing an FHA loan, they're going to base their approval FHA, make sure that it fits FHA. And then what they're going to say, okay, does it fit MFA's requirements, right? So kind of what we talked about. Are they a first-time home buyer? Check. Do they have at least a 620 credit score? If they have credit, check. Is their income below that requirement? Purchase price? It is a single family residence. So that's all we're looking for. And there's certain documentation that we ask for, obviously, to make sure that we do verify those, those few things. But that's all we're looking for, right? So once we determine that everything does fit within our program, then we say it's approved. And now you can go ahead and draw docs and get that title appointment for the documents to be signed. So really, it doesn't take much longer. It is an extra step, of course, because we just need to verify that it, that it does fit our program requirements. But other than that, I don't think, so I feel like the message is, don't be intimidated by using MFA. I think if you're lined up with a great lender, great realtors, great title, it is going to be seamless, right? But again, we all work together. We all have these partnerships where, we all have the same goal, right? We want these home buyers to get into their homes. And so there's just some steps that need to be taken. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be any harder than just doing a regular loan outside of MFA.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. As listing brokers too, like when we're going to our appointments, if we know, like having this knowledge, right, it's all a chain reaction and we all work together because it's a team and the team only works if everybody's doing their part and working together. So being, you being available to give this information out, book, like, I'm going to push for it. Like book her, like she's like, you're wonderful. I love like the way that you talk about stuff. You know what you're talking about. There's no, it's like that. Like, did she stutter? Like, no, like, like she knows her stuff.
Yeah.
And it's good to see you light up, you talk about it too, like from your side of the table, just like seeing that experience, like there is good stuff here.
Yeah.
There's so much
really
good.
Is wonderful.
So being familiar with the programs that are available, knowing the price points where these programs can be used, they might be used, educating our sellers, when we're going to these listing appointments, when we're getting that listing agreement signed, there's a section that talks about the purchase price. If you know that purchase price is going to be in these sweet spots, say, hey, now that we're talking about the other terms, obviously we want to do cash and conventional,
right?
Like FHA, VA if it qualifies. And then, hey, just a heads up, there are programs out there that give, down payment assistance to first-time and non-first-time home buyers. And sometimes those can take a little bit longer, but those offers, they're good too. And educating our clients about those offers that might come in. So it's not everybody wants the fastest and, highest, like they want security, right? And sometimes the people that are coming in with this stuff, like it's a big investment for anybody who's purchasing a home, but for a first-time home buyer, there's so much. And for somebody who's going all the way and taking the classes to get educated and like the required classes too, going through the work of building their credit and, like applying for this stuff instead of just giving up. They're doing so much work and educating all of the people that are going to be involved in that transaction. It goes a long way, so as listing brokers, we should also be educating our sellers about the potential offers that might be coming in with this kind of stuff. And hey, don't dismiss it just because it might take a little bit longer to close, like these are solid things too. And their qualification is a little more, how do you say it? A little more like detailed, right? Yeah. Like there's a lot more stuff that they have to do. So they're not messing around, and then, as buyer brokers, making sure that we're educated on what's available to our buyers. And like I said, a lot of people they get a little scared, they don't want to buy because of the interest rates, because they don't have the money, because they think, their credit isn't good enough. But knowing that there are these programs available to help overcome a lot of those objections, when the time is right, it's going to feel extra right because of all of this assistance that there is, so just everybody doing their part a little bit. And then, title, like, well, the lenders knowing what to do, and then like title knowing, the way that the program's going to work, and just like giving them that extra assurance at the closing table, like, hey, this is huge.
Like what you're stepping
know?
into is a good,
Yeah.
solid
Yes.
deal.
Yeah.
It's safe,
So
and you got a lot of support.
yeah, so take advantage of talking to the partner lenders, you know, going to the website and checking it out, you know, reaching out to you and booking you to talk about it because you know your stuff. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I love it. Like
Confident.
that's like that's and you believe in it, you know,
Yeah.
which is what makes it that much better, which is awesome. So I appreciate you so much for doing this. I told you that day, I was like, hey, I'm gonna reach out to you and book
Yes,
you. And my
yes.
number is an 818 number. So when you see it, don't send me to spam.
It's not spam.
Don't report me. And so I really appreciate it. This has been amazing. I don't know if you have any more questions.
I don't. I think we covered pretty much
Okay,
everything.
well, thank you again for having me. You know, it's been a pleasure, and I love talking, obviously, about our program and how we can help our home buyers out there in New Mexico. So I appreciate everything.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for having us.
Do we clap? I don't know.
Yay.
Thank you.